The specifics
Let's bring in Anson Winder and talk about this. What's up, Anson?
What's going on? How are you guys doing?
Good. So we'll talk BYU-Utah first, then we'll dive into what happened over the weekend. But the University of Utah president, David Pershing, said, although there will be no basketball game with BYU next year, we are committed to expanding the schedule to include BYU and other state schools to the extent that they desire such games. Way to put it on the other schools. While we respect and value the rivalry between our athletic programs, several negative aspects have emerged over the last several years that need to be addressed. He's spoken to BYU President Kevin J. Worthen, and they mentioned this. They will create a group of faculty, staff, students, and fans to assist in identifying changes that can be made to ensure future athletic contests are exciting and respectful for all. What do you think of this?
I think it's a rivalry. You know, if the emotions weren't running high, if you weren't seeing things like this, these antics that go on between rivalries, it wouldn't be such a bigger rivalry as it is. To go to the extent of addressing it as if this is recent news or recent history, I don't think it's that serious. The rivalries across the country where they don't break it up. Look at the brawl between Xavier and Cincy. You know, they didn't stop the rivalry with that. They didn't close it out. I think the game should be played. I'm hurt that it won't be played next year, but hopefully they can bring it back the year after.
Anson Winder with us in Studio B as we talk about BYU basketball and just summing up what's going on with the University of Utah right now. What is it like for the players and conversations you've had with guys on the team right now? How much do they really care about this game not happening next year?
It's huge. You know, that's a huge game that's on the schedule. We mark it every year. Coach gets super excited for that game. You just know the importance. I think every year we've played, or BYU's played Utah, they've been ranked or they've been a top program the last couple of years, and it means something to go in and play them for your strength of schedule and if you can get a win. So it'll hurt.
It was surprising last week to hear Dave Rose say that he and Larry Kraskowiak had never had a conversation about the safety of players. Now there were statements today, new ones that just came out from Larry Kraskowiak, head coach for Utah men's basketball, re-emphasizing two big issues. He says, I'm concerned about the potential for a serious injury in the current atmosphere of this rivalry. And then he says, within this matchup exists a highly venomous and toxic environment that fuels irrational behavior. That sounds like a rivalry definition to me. And has nothing to do with enhancing relationships or appreciating differences. And he continues, there's more there. We did tweet the full statement from Larry Kraskowiak. Why in the world can Utah cancel this without even having a conversation about it, Anson? I'm asking you answerless questions.
I don't know how that can happen without a conversation being had. And I don't think a rivalry should be played to enhance a relationship. I think that's a little excessive. The rivalry's played because it's two teams that want to compete and they want to win. I don't think it's a matter of strengthening a relationship. It's more of I want to beat the other team. So, I mean, that's tough. It's a tough battle.
Bottom line is the game is not going to happen next year, and that will hurt BYU's scheduling and RPI and all that stuff. With that in mind, let's talk about where BYU basketball is right now. 12-5 this season, 76th in the latest NCAA RPI. They will play 7 of their final 10 games at home, including home contests with St. Mary's and Gonzaga. Okay, Anson, right now, is BYU where do you think they are? What do you give to the status of BYU? Are they ahead of where you thought they'd be, right where you thought they'd be, or behind?
I'd say a little behind, but that's the swing of college basketball. We could go back and forth about games that BYU should have won, games that we had in the bag that we just didn't close out, and that's the nature of college basketball. I think you give a couple more minutes against Harvard, a couple more minutes against Long Beach, and you win those games. But I think going into it now, I think we're right where we need to be. How you look at the roster and how we've had to rebuild and rely on new contributors and young players to add to this team, and it's proving dividends. And you're seeing them kind of catch a tempo now that is at a good point going into Gonzaga this week. It'll be tough, but they're learning a lot, and you're seeing them grow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week.
Yeah, we both agreed that BYU is just one game behind. I think the Long Beach State game probably embodies the one game that probably got away. Because I think BYU wanted 2 wins in Hawaii. Obviously, you want 3, but they came away with 2. Now you look forward, you see BYU go on the road for 4 in a row and then play 7 of 10 at home. BYU's 1-4 on the road. What will BYU need to do to go, say, at least 3-1 on the road in the next 4?
The consistency of shooting, and there need to be a little bit more of a defensive presence. I think one area that has been a concern is guarding the ball. I think we've seen problems with that over the last couple of years. It's not just this year. So I think that help defense and the point of attack on the ball will be a major focus. And, we've seen them get hot And when we know as well as anyone, as soon as BYU starts hitting shots, they're tough to beat. They're one of the best teams in the country when they're making their outside shots. So if that consistency can stay in play and we can see these young guys continue to make plays and follow that leadership of Kyle and Chase, we'll see some success throughout the course of this year.
We have seen the emergence of a true freshman, Zach Selius, who is second in the country in three-point field goal percentage at 58.5%. What makes Zach so successful at such a young age at this level?
I mean, I think it's his confidence. I think coaches and the rest of the team have instilled that confidence in him where they expect him to take shots and make shots. With the minutes he's playing, he's out there a ton, and he can kind of play through some of the mistakes that he's made and still be relied on to make big plays when it's time to make big plays. We saw that over the weekend. We've been seeing that all season. So I think that's the confidence that's kind of carrying over, and we're seeing it on a daily-to-day basis now.
He talked about the point of attack, and that's what Dave Rose really addressed in his post-game press conference after the San Francisco game Saturday night. Explain to us how BYU is playing against the point of attack, and then how they improve.
We've seen them struggle. I think their point guard, Watson from San Francisco, we saw him, have a great start to the game, and it kind of worried me a little bit because you let guys like that get hot, and they can really hurt you. BYU found a way to contain him in the second half and get him out of his rhythm. And I think it's a matter of finding that earlier in the game and maybe to start the game, getting guys like that, offensive players, off rhythm and out of sync so that you can cause problems and still play your style of play throughout the game. So I think that's an area of concern, but they're finding it. They're learning, and if they can do that earlier in the game, it'll help.
Now, specifically in ball screens and that kind of thing, BYU never switches. Is there any thought in your mind to maybe switching occasionally, even though it might create mismatches in the post ever?
Definitely, and I think that goes through coach's mind. I know through the course of a conference play and through the course of the year, he likes to throw in different defensive strategies. So we could see that definitely in the next game or in the games after that, where they start to switch point guard through 4-man or 1 through 5, or no matter what, just to throw different looks at the defense and the offense because they know what's coming. They know through the last 10 games they've switched or stayed with their man through all the ball screens, so teams know what's going to happen. So we'll start to see a little bit of a switch, and hopefully coach will throw a wrench in there, and we'll see what happens.
Who is the vocal and motivational leader on this team right now?
I'd have to say it's Chase and Kyle. I think they're the seniors that the coaches wanted, and they've kind of risen to the occasion and really got these guys behind them and got them in line to follow them and compete at a high level. Vocally, I know for a fact that they're in the rallying the troops every day on a day-to-day basis. I know coaches talking to them on a daily basis, and they want to win. I think if you can get troops behind you that are following your lead and want to win just as bad as you do, you'll find success.
It's interesting right now that the press conference with Larry Kraskowiak continues. And I want to address it because that's what people are talking about right now. Kraskowiak, I'm not describing BYU as dirty players. He said he feels like the home arena adds a level of toxicity.
Yeah.
Yep. In it, and he said the pattern was there, but he waited until this year. He probably should have called off the game earlier. Said there was no reason for canceling after playing at home. Just finally felt it was time. I just still can't get over this, and I know we had already swung it to San Francisco, but that press conference going on right now, and Utah is stuck to this card of dirty play. Yet they never addressed it. That's a toxic relationship to not communicate. That's where it starts. I just don't know why Utah is stuck to that gun. If they don't want to play BYU because the Pac-12 is too tough, and that's the only rational decision I've come up with in my mind is maybe the Pac-12 is just too hard, and they don't want to play other tough non-conference games. I don't know why they haven't talked to BYU about it, and they're still sticking to that angle.
BYU might become a neutral site game. That has also been discussed. And
they owe BYU a home game, though. I know they'll pay that buyout.
If everybody has been talking about a state tournament, okay, where you play it at a neutral site, Energy Solutions Arena with Utah, BYU, Weber State, Utah State. Okay. Well, Kraskowiak said that that has been discussed.
Okay. There we go.
So
that's the first time someone of importance actually discussed it.
Anson, if this is what it takes to result in a state tournament like that, was it worth it to cancel the BYU-Utah game in Provo?
Worth it? I wouldn't say worth it. I'd say common median for all the teams in the state of Utah. I think that rivalry, the home and home, has been a huge, huge uplift to the state and to college basketball as a whole. So just a matter of them playing would be great, but I'd love to see the home-home rivalry continue.
Amen. You have a good home game, that draws well for each team. It's exciting to have that team go up there. My favorite events to go to as a sports fan in this state are BYU and Utah football and men's basketball games.
Oh, of course. I think that's what everyone marks on their calendar every year. This is one of the biggest games in Utah, regardless of sport. Everyone wants to see basketball, Utah, and BYU. Everyone wants to see the football, BYU and Utah. These games, I feel like they have to be played. It should be it's bigger than, one or two people making the decision. I feel like this is something that resolves a bigger committee to say, hey, look, this game's going to be played or this game isn't going to be played.
Yeah, this group of faculty, staff, students, and fans are going to be in charge of this now. Wait, Chris Hill and Tom Holmoe can't get in a room and figure this out? They need these people to get together? That's silly.
I don't know that it's so much on BYU side as it is, obviously, with Utah wanting this committee of students, whatever.
It's
just play the game. Just find a way to play the game. And if it can't be at home sites and it has to be neutral, I'll take a neutral site game over no game at all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a concession. It's such a concession on BYU's side.
I understand that, but would you not want to play the game? Would you rather not play the game than play it at a neutral site?
You're right. I just hate conceding to that degree.
Anson Winder with us in
Utah
studio.
wins in that situation.
Talking BYU basketball, everything from the current status of the BYU-Utah relationship to now BYU going on the road and playing at Gonzaga, a place that the last time the Cougars visited pulled off one of the, if not the greatest road victory in BYU basketball history on senior night, ending the Zags' perfect mark and really booking your spot in the NCAA tournament. What is it like to play in that environment, Anson?
Oh, it's a zoo, especially when you come from some of these smaller arenas in our conference to go to Gonzaga and see how they really pack the house. And it gets rowdy in there. It's similar to the Marriott. Not as big, but it's similar. So it's definitely that six-man effect that we like to have here at the Marriott, but it's competitive, and it makes for an even bigger game, especially if you go there and win.
What's it like preparing for that game, knowing what's at stake any given season for BYU? And of the last 4 seasons, last year's was the only time BYU had won up there.
Well, I think our team last year when we went there, it was a back against the wall. This is what's going to get us to the tournament, the biggest game of the year, biggest game of our lives. And you go into that knowing, okay, well, we have to compete and we have to guard them better than we've guarded anyone throughout the course of the year. We have to control the game. I think those are attributes that we did well. We controlled the game for most of it, and we found a way to win. I think that was probably the most fun and biggest game of my life. And when you have that mindset going into Gonzaga, you have success.
BYU has a pattern, and really in the last few years you can look at this consistently and see that the team, while the Cougars have struggled early in the season, they've consistently gotten better as the season has progressed and finished with these wild runs at the end to make the NCAA tournament. Are we not giving enough credit to Dave Rose? Because really that screams good coaching when a team struggles early and finds a way to get better as the season progresses.
Oh, I agree. He deserves the utmost credit. I think we forget. We rely so heavily sometimes on the losses that BYU's taken. We forget that this is still a winning team. It's still a quality, great product that he's putting out every year. And the fact that the team let a couple of games slip, they've caught a tempo that, the run that they've put together these last couple of weeks. And that's all it's about, is finding that run and building some momentum going into the tournament.
When you look at the matchup with Gonzaga again, BYU has a few more bigs this year to maybe attack offensively, unlike last year, unless your name's Corbin Kaufusi and you can throw up that 12-foot hook shot or whatever. What kind of difference could Kyle Davis potentially have there, especially if, I don't know if Sabonis would guard him, maybe not.
It's a little more of a post presence, and if we can draw fouls on those bigs, that'll help tremendously. I think that's one of the best front courts in the country, and they are year in and year out. So they would definitely cause us problems. So that as soon as the BYU can get them in foul trouble or get them off their game, that'll be an added bonus for BYU.
Can BYU guard Kyle Wiltshire man-to-man? And if so, who would they put on him?
I think we'll see a ton of different defenses thrown at Kyle Wiltshire throughout the course of a game. Coach Rose isn't going to stick to one game plan. I think he's going to see the team. We're going to see the team do a bunch of different things, whether it's doubling or maybe having Kyle guard him because he's a little bit bigger, or maybe throwing Kyle Davis on him for a little bit, or when he's in the post, maybe sending a double team. There's going to be a few different things thrown at him, and that's what we'll need to win the game.
We're going to give a specific number of wins that will allow, or what we believe will allow BYU to rest more easy as an at-large team if it comes to that on Selection Sunday. But does BYU have to beat Gonzaga on the road to get into the NCAA tournament?
Right now, I would say yes.
Really?
Yes. I looked at the bracket today, and Joe Lenari doesn't have us in it at all.
Nowhere to be seen.
So that means that either he's relying on this win to really lift BYU into the tournament, or is this a test to see how they'll fare? But I think this game is important, and BYU will need it late March. And if so happens that it's not this game, then they definitely need it at home.
What is it about playing the Zags that brings out maybe the best of BYU in a situation where, hey, last year BYU wins that game and needed it in the NCAA tournament? The new rival. Since Utah's not, you remember what happened with BYU-Utah football? It became Boise State / Utah State.
Yeah.
Does it become Gonzaga, St. Mary's now?
Yeah, you almost have to.
Who it is.
Yeah, which we've had our battles with Gonzaga, we've had our battles with St. Mary's, so that rivalry is already kind of being offsetted and created throughout the course of these last couple of years since being in the conference. So that doesn't help you feel better about not playing Utah, but that is still that competitiveness that you need, and a strong finish to conference will help you going into March. So that those two games, not only are they rivalries, they're huge games for your schedule.
Which team, Gonzaga or St. Mary's, is a bigger rival? In terms of which team does BYU as a basketball program feel more salty about, Gonzaga or St. Mary's?
Oh, that's tough. We've had some heartbreaks against St. Mary's. They're both so important. It's hard to pick one over the other. We've had we had daggers against St. Mary's, and Gonzaga. There's been years where Gonzaga's just flat out beat us, both ways. So it's hard to pick one over the other.
So if I just say St. Mary's or Gonzaga, and you're like, both of them are just like, oh.
Yeah, both of them. You just kind of that irking feeling like you just want to be. You want to beat both of them, and the plan is to beat both of them. But to pick one over the other, I don't think I could do it.
Both salty.
I want to win both.
Both salty. Yeah, exactly.
It's St. Mary's for me, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I've switched my opinion on this. Last year we had this debate: who do BYU fans dislike more, St. Mary's or Gonzaga? I thought it was Gonzaga, but I think BYU fans have a healthy respect for Gonzaga, like Boise State football, right?
Yeah.
But St. Mary's.
It's not mutual. It's not mutual respect for St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, the Delava Dagger, Brad Waldo. No.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Oh man, it's not. I agree 100%.
Competitive respect, but I mean like who you dislike more, and there's a little more rancor there.
Who you absolutely have to beat or hate to lose to. Yeah, St. Mary's.
Anson, great stuff. Always good to have you in the studio.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.